Good afternoon.
Michael, good afternoon. All right, we made it.
Yes, indeed.
Let's see, put sound. Yeah, that should be
Yeah.
better.
Thank you for adjusting the time. I um, yeah, had a pretty important thing that needed to take care of, and
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, starting at an hour from now is the first available time for everybody. So
No, no problem. Thank you for being there and doing everything to have this meeting going on.
yeah, yeah. Even though Sergey is, I can't make the the adjusted times.
Oh,
Yeah, we haven't been able to meet him yet.
yeah. You made very nice things on your website.
Oh, good,
Documentation. The
good,
new
good.
it it's not online, I think yet. Let's see. No. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. You
yeah,
yeah. You put the steps online. Okay.
yeah, indeed. Yeah, the link I sent you was directly to the
Mhm.
steps. Yeah, I did notice that it's really aggressive about caching. So I think initially it's because I had it configured as a PWA, which you can do in Gatsby.
Mhm.
And so I think that it's got the service worker still installed if you visited it before I turned that off. Um, so I'll probably have to add some code up there to actively go in and turn it off. And the
Mhm.
reason is that now if you visit the site the first time, you won't see the changes that I put up there until you do a hard refresh, and then it says, "Oh, okay, there's new stuff."
Okay.
So,
No, because I downloaded the updates from GitHub
oh, okay.
and I just ran it locally, and there I got the first problem.
Ah,
Now I just uploaded. I didn't make a pull request yet, but if you go and see in my fork,
mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I can share it if you want to. That's perhaps easier.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead and do that.
Yeah,
That'll help out.
then everybody can see it. Applications. Why is it black? Um, Hmm. Okay. It starts giving me something. Perhaps it's that. Let's see.
There we go.
Yeah. But it's perhaps not really readable. Let's make it smaller then. Can you read
Mm-hmm.
it in that way?
Yes.
So I just had a branch corrections,
Mm-hmm.
and the first thing when I fetched all the new things from your site, and I tried to run it, it didn't work. And actually, in your package.json, there was a link to MLP render graphics, and that plugin itself was called Remark Graphics.
Oh, okay.
It's
Hmm.
it's very funny because in theory it could not be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did have to, in order to get it to run on build, I had to bring the package into a subfolder, I believe, and then directly reference that subfolder inside a package.json, um, which is very similar to the graphiz package. We've got a reference
Yeah,
there.
but was it
Hmm.
perhaps you changed something afterwards and you didn't adapt the package.json?
Yeah, could be.
But then I say, okay, just remove the node modules and do a node install again. And
Mm-hmm.
then the package lock.json changed completely.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And the funny thing was you were on version 2,
Uh-huh.
and I think I still have npm version 6 and not 7.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it bounced back to version 1.
Uh-huh.
So in the end, I adapted package.json and package.log.json, both of them manually. I shouldn't
Okay.
do that, but in that way, I could just upload the corrections without changing the whole file. But so I adapted the link. Then wait, how does this? Yeah, then there was a small typo
Yeah,
on the
get you
website
started.
here.
All right.
Started, yeah. Then here the
It's a
graphics
subliminal.
one.
I'm trying to get people to
Let's
star the repo. That's what that is.
see here. So
Mm-hmm.
you refer to render, and it should have been remark. That was the
Okay.
name of your component.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. It's
and then the rest
odd
are
that way.
very, very small things.
Mhm.
Yeah. It was always it assumes that you have create a Node app, but actually in the menu bar you call it a Node application.
Yeah. Yeah. So that makes sense for it to be
So
consistent there.
everywhere where I found that I adapted it.
Yeah.
Then there was an invalid link. Yeah. If you prefer to use a packager like Webpack,
Oh, right. Yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that step, but there were 2 steps, one for JavaScript and one for TypeScript.
Right. Yes.
So I put it in 2 steps.
Yeah.
And then that was really a small one. In one sample you put can create a fact, and in the next sample you called it create a list.
Okay.
So it was a little bit bizarre, so I called it a fact again.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that second example was the one where it's an array of facts. So that might actually be more explicit.
I think it was identical to the first one.
Okay. But yeah, I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, so it's in the branch corrections. You can just do a pull from there.
Okay.
But then I have questions and remarks.
Awesome. Okay. And by the way, if you're hearing sirens, it's because it's the first Wednesday of the month.
Oh, and then
they do the tests.
I cannot hear them from here. But
okay.
Wait, let's then. Oh, no, that's the wrong screen here. Stop the sharing like this. Perhaps I can just share the website then. Might be. That is the website. Okay.
Okay. Yep, I'm seeing it.
First thing, I don't know whether that's possible. So when you select setup steps, that it would highlight. You see my cursor?
Yes. Well, I see that you've highlighted setup steps. I don't see the.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
That he would highlight this. It's just a small thing, but often you are somewhere, and then the question is, where do I am in the menu?
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you've gotten there by following a link from a different page, you didn't navigate there. So, yeah, that is
I'm not sure whether that's something that is foreseen in that menu in Gatsby.
At this point, the menu is now completely under my control. I've got a component that's rendering that out. And in fact, one of the things that I was thinking about is putting that inside of an overflow scroll div, so that it can scroll independent of the content. So and I think we might actually be getting close to enough content there that maybe it makes sense to collapse things. I want to make sure that becomes a real problem before I collapse things, because when I go to a site like MS Docs, that has so many nested layers and things collapse. I find that it gets hard to remember what all is there and be able to find it again. So I prefer not to, but yeah, certainly
Now,
highlighting which one you're on is something that component can do.
now when we have the steps, the getting started.
Right. Yeah, and that information is going to go away. It's all going to make its way up into steps.
Yeah. Okay. Because then it will be shorter again.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, then by the time it gets there, there's going to be a whole lot more steps. So.
Then in the setup steps here, nowhere you mentioned that we work in VS Code, and I don't think you mentioned here to install Node already. So.
Okay, right.
For somebody who's coming from .NET, it might be interesting to mention that. Install VS Code, install Node. If you want, I can just send you the text that I wrote down afterwards in a mail.
Okay, yeah, that'll help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it also makes sense for me to keep some notes as well. But yeah.
Okay. Then install Jinaga. Where was that? Here. Okay, here. This import, I think it would be nice to have, because you don't mention there to create any file.
Right.
It would be nice to just make a main.js or an index.js where you can put these strings in and then just do some testing with it, which we will be doing later in the later steps.
Yeah.
But at least that we know that it works. Because there I was looking into the source code of Jinaga, and that really confuses me. Because actually, here you go to on the client side. So that is the file jinaga.js that you reference here. And here with require, that's the file index. That's the Jinaga directory. And then it's the file index.js in the dist folder. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I was trying to go for here is I wanted to make it clear to people that that are explicitly looking for, like they've already got their own opinion about how to package or input stuff or import stuff, and so I wanted to really call out this one is CommonJS and that one is AMD, and they're in different places. So yeah, I think showing that as source code is not effective, because as you said, in a later step I actually show how to bring this into your project using a couple of different ways, and that's where the source code works, because that's where you're setting up the files and you can actually run the test. So I think I'll change the treatment here and maybe even make a table where you can see, okay, for the client side, it's this file, this is CommonJS, and for the server side, client is CommonJS, or server is CommonJS, client is AMD. And then, if that's the information you're looking for, you got it, you're on your way. But if not, you're like, I don't know what that means, then you go to the steps, and the steps show you what to do with them.
Yeah. Because what's also confusing, if you go into the source code from Jinaga, so you import that file Jinaga, there is just one class inside, an export Jinaga. But it also exports a lot of things which it imports directly. And
Yes.
for example, the server, so this one here, it also exports Jinaga browser.
Yes. And there is
So
it is a very
it's
confusing
such a
reason, but there is a reason
mix.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you are using Janaga in TypeScript, TypeScript is going to find one type definition for the package. So if you use the alias in order to say, okay, whenever you're looking for Janaga from the client, you should be able to find it at Janaga dist Janaga. TypeScript is still going to just use the Janaga type definition, and so yeah, the reason for that is so that you have access to those types on either the client or the server. So it is,
Okay.
yeah, it is unfortunate, but I don't
Mm.
know a different way to do that. I had thought about, and this might still be the way to go, having two separate packages, a client-side package and a server-side package, and then they could have the types that are just supported on that in that platform, and then you wouldn't have to do any aliasing either. You'd be able to just import from Janaga -client and import from Janaga -server or whatever you end up calling them.
But then you would have two completely different packages, or with common
Yes.
modules.
Yes. Yeah, that is the unfortunate place that leads to. And I don't know which way I ultimately want to go. I could end up making the common modules a third package that they both depend upon. Yeah, it's starting to get a little bit unruly in terms of the amount of work that you have to do in order to consume it, and so yeah, going with this mechanism, this was my attempt to just say, okay, it's just one Janaga, and you have to do this weird thing when you get started, but once you're started, then there's only one thing to keep up to date.
Okay. I will, now that I know a little bit the background of it.
Yeah.
Because I said, why is it so complicated? But now I understand.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I
actually,
don't
with
have too
the
many
whole,
examples to go from because most of the packages you see are really intended to be used from the client or from the server. There aren't too many
yeah,
packages that span the two.
okay. Yeah, but there should be a solution. One day we will find it.
Yeah.
No, because this module thing, it's quite complicated. If you start looking from both, from the server and from the client. But the fact, if you work with TypeScript, then you can just keep working in TypeScript modules, in fact, which is almost the same as the JavaScript modules. And then the TypeScript compiler will change it for you, if I understand well.
Yeah. Yeah, it does a really good job of module management for you.
So actually, the fact that the Jinaga library itself is written in TypeScript is a huge advantage for that.
Yeah, so if I find that I need to recompile it into JavaScript modules instead of CommonJS or AMD, then it should be a pretty simple change for me to do that.
Yeah, actually, if the configuration is correct, then it should be pretty simple. But to get the configuration correct. Okay, then the client side needs to import and exports. What did I wrote down here? Oh yeah, that's the Jinaga browser, but okay. Yeah, that we also had then install TypeScript. Where was that? Install TypeScript. Actually, this export. Why do we have to add it?
Yeah, that is to tell TypeScript that this is a module. Without that, at least in the past, I don't know if it still behaves this way, TypeScript would treat that as just raw JavaScript and just pass it on through. So you would end up with just console log hello as the output. But putting that in there causes it to wrap that in in the like in this case, yeah, this is for the client. So yeah, it causes that to wrap it in the AMD preamble.
In a module, in fact, then if you put export with nothing, then this script will not be in the global scope. Is it that?
Yeah. If you look at the output, actually, do you happen to have a project that's using Webpack at this point that we can?
Well,
I guess it wouldn't be Webpack.
All the testing,
it would be TSC.
all the testing. Right. Let me see here.
Yeah, and actually, this is the server side that we're talking about here, so it might not be an issue.
If I make that virtual machine a little bit smaller, yeah, then I have to. Did I share a second one? No. Change window. Yeah. Screens. All applications. Which one is it?
There we go.
Yeah. I think it's that one. Okay. Yeah, that was the testing I did for the website.
Okay, so this one still has an index.ts at the root of the source folder. So
here's my source. Here I have index.ts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it looks like we've commented that out already. So
yeah.
So
and it did work as well.
Yeah. To see what actually you can already see inside of your dist folder, you've got an index.js. Let's take a look at what gets output there. So yeah. So you can see that index.js is just the raw JavaScript that you had in that file. So if you uncomment the exports inside of index.ts,
this one, and then I recompile.
Yeah, and so this would recompile with TSC.
TSC, and where was that one in source? Source / index.ts. Work like this. Yeah. It's adding it here.
Yeah, put it right there. But there.
Just adds this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it might not be as important in this scenario. In most scenarios where I'm just trying out that for the first time, and I just by habit put the export line there. It's because I'm targeting AMD instead of CommonJS, and so what you would see if you were targeting AMD would be the declare and all of that preamble and then put this inside of a function, whereas without the export it would just be the raw console.log. So so yeah, in this case this is really just saying yes, this is a module. Whereas if you didn't have any exports, then it's not actually a module. So, but as it turns out with CommonJS, very little difference. So.
So here we can leave it out if we want to, but let's go back to the website then.
Yeah, and so if it's causing confusion, then best to leave it out.
Okay. Then the testing steps. Why was there a difference? So in JavaScript, you have an import here, just the Jinaga test. While if you do it with TypeScript, you have an import of Jinaga. No, I'm completely wrong here. Here you have Jinaga test, but also Jinaga.
Yep. So
is that because you need that type here?
Yeah, exactly. It's just for that line. So yeah, if you're not in TypeScript and you don't declare the type for that variable, then you don't need to import it.
Okay. Then the server side. So the testing steps we have done in JavaScript and in TypeScript.
Yes.
And the server side is only in JavaScript.
Yeah, so I've been trying to, so I've been trying to, first of all, document it in JavaScript, and then if the TypeScript steps are similar enough that if you had already taken the TypeScript route, so you already had that opinion, you would know what to do. If that's the case, then I didn't bother creating a separate TypeScript step for you. But yeah, testing ended up being significantly different enough in those two. In particular, with TypeScript using TS Loader, that was the main difference. And then with Webpack, lots of differences.
Yeah, here we will just have the imports, which are different then.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, but I'm making the assumption that if you've decided to use TypeScript, then you know that, and then things will work for you. And there are some other type declarations that you would need to sprinkle throughout, and you'll find those pretty quickly and fix them.
Then on the server-side steps, we don't bring in the database yet.
Right. Yes. Yes, I'm trying to keep the dependencies minimal and kind of walk you up to that. So wait until you have that need. So
would that be after the client-side step then, adding database into the picture, or after Jinaga server?
Yeah, I would still put it in the server-side steps group. That's one of the unfortunate things about breaking it down into steps like this, is that you kind of lose the sequence that you're supposed to do these things in, and so actually while working on the steps, I started with tests and then jumped to some server-side stuff, and then did some client-side stuff, and jumped back to server-side. So this is going to be continuing to do that, jumping back and forth. But yeah, setting up the database will just be on the server side.
But if you just go through the steps and you follow them in this order, it's logical and it's fine.
Okay, so
now the problem with the database, if you put it here after here in the Jinaga server as a third step just behind, then you don't have anything on the client yet.
Yeah.
So you will not be able to see the effect of the database.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I want to motivate that change first.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe it
While
does make sense to go ahead and have that be another group.
put it behind here and perhaps call it add database to server.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you can really see what's the added value of the database.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, um, my initial thought there was that we've got the steps, but just before that, it would insert um, another group of pages that I was thinking of as plans. No, paths. Sorry, yeah, paths. And so each path was a sequence of steps, and so the steps could kind of jump around within the path. But then the steps would be all available to you, so you could immediately say, okay, I have this particular problem. I'm going to go to this step to just solve that problem. But but yeah, I see the the problem that would create is that you would think, seeing steps, that you're supposed to follow them in this order. And I think it makes sense to, if you see JavaScript and TypeScript, you'll skip to the right one. I don't think that's too confusing. Excuse me. So yeah, maybe the paths idea doesn't really make sense, and so I'll just keep it with the steps, and then I'll endeavor to keep them in order, and make it obvious when you have a specific choice and you can skip some steps. That's going to happen when introducing React. So there's going to be a whole bunch of React steps, and it's like, well, I'm not using React, I'm doing something else, so okay, skip that one. So eventually there will be a series of Vue steps, and eventually, a long time from now, a series of Angular steps.
There is only one thing that I found confusing.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually the require JS step. Because in the Webpack step you refer regularly to the previous one, and it's like they are mixed up a little bit, these two. So the reference the client library that's using require JS, and I don't really follow this one.
Yeah, this is this is one of those alternatives. So yeah, I think maybe like a choose your own adventure style would actually work here. So if you are going Webpack, just go down that route. If you're using Webpack with JavaScript, here's your step. Webpack with TypeScript, here's your step. If you're not using Webpack, the only option I've got for you right now is require. So here's your step.
But then you will have an explosion of possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true.
I don't know, but now we are used to Webpack. So is it useful to add require into the picture?
Well, the thing that motivated that for me was that somebody opened a defect on Janaga that it doesn't work with the older or more traditional workflows. So he was trying to get Janaga to work without using Webpack, so just something more traditional, and ran into some problems because he didn't realize that there was a separate client-side library, and so that motivated me to create the page about require.js, because that is the more traditional way of handling AMD. So Webpack is a modern way of doing it, but there are a couple of newer alternatives as well. I just haven't gotten into those alternatives yet. Webpack is still good enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I did want to give the people who wanted to use a more traditional workflow, I wanted to give them the information they needed to be successful. And so I did that in two ways. First of all, at the very beginning, try to spell out that there are two libraries. One of them is AMD, one of them's CommonJS, and so we already talked about ways to improve that. But then the second way is to take them step by step using the AMD package with Require.js.
The reason I think why the difference between JavaScript and TypeScript is it's very clear that these are two different ways, because it's the same title, and then with JavaScript or TypeScript behind it. While here, you see 2 times configure Webpack. That's indeed, you make a choice. But the first one here, it looks like this is the first step, then you do that,
Right,
or that.
Yeah.
And it should be either you do 1, either you do 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I think that's confusing.
Yeah. So if we just change the titles so that it's I mean these are starting to get to be long titles, but it should still kind of work. So reference the client-side library using Require.js, reference the client-side library using Webpack JavaScript, reference the client-side library using Webpack TypeScript.
Or even shorter, using Require.js, using JavaScript, using Webpack with JavaScript, using Webpack with TypeScript. Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perhaps your title's still better. Reference the client using Require.js, then using Webpack / JavaScript, using Webpack / TypeScript.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then that'll make it clear that these are alternatives, and so you just pick which one you want to use, and then you can continue with the steps. Yeah.
The require procedure, because this require thing, I didn't look too deep in it, but I never got it working. Make everything visible. So actually, it was mentioning this here script. Where was it? Yeah. So the scripts directory, but we never created the scripts directory as far as same here.
Yeah. So that get right there is if the URL starts with /scripts, then it's going to match against that. So so yeah, that doesn't refer to an actual scripts folder on the hard drive. It's just saying, okay, if the URL is /scripts /main.js, then I want you to send this file. So start from here, go up a folder, go into the client folder, and then get main.js from there. And so doing that kind of saved me from having to tell you to to configure something that will copy all these files into a scripts folder. So that would have been some complexity on the build step.
Yeah. So this one, he gets it from the node model folder, and he gets require.js. And this from the dist folder. In my case, it didn't do anything. Or it told me file not found or something like that, and I didn't. I will try it again. I will
Okay.
try it again. Oh yeah, here then Webpack GS here. Now we can move the source code in source client index.js. Should that not be main.js?
Yes,
Because that's the
that
one
is the
that we
case.
used before here. Right, here we had main.js.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we make the fact and we do this define.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we go back then to, so then here,
Yeah.
we need
Although,
to code main.js.
honestly, I think probably the main problem with this sentence here is the fact that it refers to what's happening in the require JS.
Previous step.
Right.
Yeah.
And as we just said, that's not really the previous step. So I would have expected you to have skipped that step before coming here. So
yeah. Yeah, because here also, if you follow the require JS, you can remove that package.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, what's the difference between remove and uninstall?
I don't know if there is one actually. That's just the one that came to mind.
I haven't looked it up, but I saw it. I said, strange. I don't know about remove. I always use uninstall.
Yeah, I think they're aliases actually.
Could be.
But yeah, I'll after doing the renaming, I'll get rid of all those references to that other step.
I think that will clear it up. And then this one, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
It was important, but I don't understand why.
Yeah. So the first line of the code that you see there imports Janaga browser from Janaga/dis/Janaga, as opposed to just from Janaga, and so that's calling out that's an important distinction, because if you just say import Janaga browser from Janaga, and you're following these steps, then you're going to run into all sorts of build errors, because it's going to try to bring in Postgres and everything that's not on the client. So yeah, I could make that a bit more clear why that's important.
Yeah, because I didn't understand that it was about this one. I didn't make the link between these two, but perhaps I didn't look very well. Another thing, remember in the sample before, it was import Jinaga from, and here we use Jinaga browser. So
yeah, and so the difference here is between the JavaScript one and the TypeScript one. I've done an alias, although, you know what? If I do the alias on the TypeScript or on the JavaScript one, that'll still work. There's no reason that it has to be TypeScript in order for that to work. Okay, so yeah, it's only that you run into the problems in TypeScript that you don't have type definitions for this for this file, and therefore you run into type errors. But okay, yeah. So I think the important thing will be change this to import from Janaga, and then set up the alias when configuring Webpack.
Okay. That was our daily break.
Yep.
Then there was.
Okay, so could you share again, please?
Sorry?
Could you share again, please? It interrupted the sharing.
Okay, the sharing also disappeared.
Yeah.
It was that one. Yeah.
And here it comes. There it is. Thank you.
Then that. Be here. Was somewhere create a file called webpack config, and that's the webpack config here.
Mm-hmm.
No. Configure webpack TS. Configure webpack TS. It must be somewhere here. Install. We want to install that because this means the one also brings in the alias. That's strange. Where is that sentence? Import to build, no. I think I wrote it down wrong. Here. Yeah, it was. So it's in the JavaScript scenario. Create a file called webpack.config.js. I would add there at the same level as the package.json.
Ah, yes.
Because otherwise people might put it in the source directory.
Yeah, it is a JS file. It makes sense that it would be. But yeah, you're right.
What else did we have? What is here that we had? Yeah, then another one, but that was mainly important for your website. By running into that problem with the package.log.json version 1 and version 2, I realized the importance of using npm CI instead of npm install. Especially when we collaborate on something. Because if I would use npm install, it would rewrite the whole log file.
Right.
And that was a file with 50,000 lines, I think, a text file.
Yeah.
So if I rewrite it and I check it in, and then you rewrite it and you check it in, so I think it's important there to use npm CI, unless we add something to the package.json, then we have no choice.
Right. Yes.
But that's in fact that has nothing to do with this project. But that made me thinking. So package.json and the log file, especially, it forces you to make the whole tree reproducible. But how? But that doesn't prevent you from using a complete different version of Node and a different version of npm. And I find that a little bit amazing. Because so apparently you were on npm version 7, I was on npm version 6 or 5, I don't remember. But that means that package-log.json has a different format.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm trying to go back to you were saying that that it makes the tree reproduce. Oh yeah. Okay. So version the lock file version 2 they did that so that they would have enough information to reproduce the exact same tree. That's what you were talking about?
I don't know what's the difference between the version 1 layout and the version 2 layout. It's probably just better, but from NPM version 7 onwards, they use a version 2 layout.
Yeah. And the reason, as I understand, is that in the version 1 layout, there wasn't enough information to know for sure that you had these particular versions of all of these packages throughout the tree. And so it had to make some inferences based on the packages as they were downloaded. But then with the version 2 layout, they added some more information, inspired by Yarn, as I understand, that that made it such that if you do the npm CI, you will get exactly the same node modules tree.
Okay. But so the tree is consistent with all the collaborators, but your NPM version itself and your node version, they don't care about.
Yeah, I'm not certain how they do that. How an older version of NPM could interpret the version 2 layout and get the right results.
Because the result was that when I did an npm install, he took my package.json, he regenerated an log file, but he regenerated the version 1.
Yeah.
While you were on version 2.
Yeah, and I've seen that with my my dev team on my project as well. Is that we were fighting over package lock, and so I saw that in a pull request and said, "Oh, okay, yeah, don't check that in. Instead, let's get on the same version of npm."
Yeah. So that made me think: is there not a way to have in the repository an indication? You need to have that version of npm and that version of node, and that it will automatically switch.
I don't know about that. That's a good thing to research.
There was one thing I found was, how was it? But that looked more like a hack than really. npm no. No versioning. No. Yeah, I think I wrote it down somewhere, but.
Yeah, you can probably do some kind of a script to say, when the project is loaded, then run this script and check npm-v, and if it gives you something that is less than this version, then show a message or something like that. It might be a way to do that.
What it was, they in your dependencies in your package.json, they added node add and then the version number. So they made node a dependency, and the result was that so your global node installation, the npm of the global node installation is used to do the npm install, but then it will bring in the binaries from node in your node modules. It will have a local installation of node and of npm, and that will be used then.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. Yeah, that. On the one hand, I do like the explicitness, but yeah, that's also basically, if everyone were to follow that, then you would have to have a separate node installation for every single project you're working on. Yeah. And then what if it's older than your global installation? What if your project goes stale? Then people are running an older version of Node. I mean, I guess you're just doing at 6 or so well, not 6, but 14 or whatever. So you're not pinning it to a very specific version, but I don't know. Yeah, that does seem a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't dig very deep into it, but I had the impression that some people were very happy with it, and some people say no, this is absolutely not possible. But so far, not a solution where everybody was agreed that it was a good solution.
Yeah. Yep, I think it's just going to be for a little while. When you see a PR that has package lock JSON or in there, you just say, "Oh, wait a minute, let's upgrade, and then let's take this out of the PR." So yeah, just something that we'll have to a technology problem that we'll have to solve with people. You can't solve people problems with technology, but you can do the opposite. So. Okay.
Good.
Well, I believe I need to hop off and get ready for my next meeting.
Okay, then I let you go. I just had one more question. That was, do you have a good source for knowledge about modules? Did you find a good course on Plural's site or a good article or book?
No, I haven't. I've just been kind of scraping information together as I find it, and some of it's old, and some of it is opinionated, and you just kind of look past those things and try to figure out what's the truth. It's
okay.
Yeah, it is tough.
No problem. Okay, Michael, then I let you go. I will clean up the text that I wrote, and I will send it to you by email then.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Thanks for all of the going through the steps. I think we can make some big improvements there and make it easier for others to follow.
And it really helps me to understand the whole flow, because it's very good, a very good tutorial in that way.
Excellent. So yeah, maybe one of these days we'll take that tutorial, take all the Janaga stuff out of it, and just post that for people who want to use Node and TypeScript on without Janaga.
It might be very useful in the end.
Yeah, that's the tutorial, or that's the steps that I've been looking for from the community. But then everybody is just like, no, my opinion is you use Yarn, and so therefore here's the Yarn command line. Anything else, you figure it out.
All right. See you next week, probably.
Yes, indeed.
I will not be in my office at that moment, but I think I will have an internet connection, so I should be there.
Sounds good.
Okay. Michael, have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.